hello. In the last video, we had just left Portland, North Dakota and Mayville, North Dakota. We're headed on Highway 200, but we'll turn off it again shortly, and you'll see the note in the footnotes of the video right above the date when we change roads. We'll also go through kind of the periphery of several towns. I didn't actually go through most of them. And we'll head north. We'll find out how far north we get because I'm recording the audio first. But we're headed toward my backup plan. If I ever get kicked out of my current town, I love the town of Cavalier, North Dakota. So, hey, Cavalier, do you need a science teacher? So, in the meantime, I wanted to talk about judging people by their past. So it's a departure from my previous topic of small rural schools. I think I have more to say there, but I'm getting bored with that topic, so I thought I'd jump ship and talk about something else for a couple of videos. So, the big overarching question behind today's video is, how long do we hold past behaviors against people? Now, like most of us, I am not an objective judge of myself. At times, I may be an overly strict judge, but mostly I know that, like most of us, I tend to make myself look better than I am. If not, the hero of my own life story. I also know that I have changed and matured over the years. If you compare me now to 20 years ago, I'm quite different. Heck, compare me to 10 years ago. Go back to my 10 years, and we're almost talking about an alien. Did I say 10 years? I said, if we go back to my teen years, we're almost talking about an alien being. And I'd add that I do have past regrets. I've done stupid things. I've done wrong things. I've hurt people. And I'm probably glad that there wasn't social media or cell phones around when I was younger to capture my stupidity or immaturity. That said, what do I regret? Mostly, I shouldn't have said that. Or, that was risky. I was definitely young and dumb there. Probably more than a few of those. And yeah, my parents will never hear those stories. But let's be honest. We all have those stories. We've all done stupid things when we were young. It goes with the immaturity and the lack of experience. So I ever do or say anything truly awful? I said a few hurtful things to people. Sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. I've done things I regret. But, I was boring. True story, I had my first drink of alcohol at age 22. It was a glass of wine with a girl I used to like in high school. So here's a funny story. My mother might not like me bringing this up, but, So when I was a sophomore in college, my mother called me, but I was out of my dorm room. So she called again a little later, but that time she dialed a wrong number and got a really drunk, hungover guy, and she thought it was me. So I was really glad when the phone bill arrived and showed that she had called the wrong number. But it's true. My college wildness was pretty tame. I never had a drink the whole time I was in college. And you may have wilder stories than I do. But still, most of us, we may embellish our stories, but compared to some of what I'm going to talk about here, they're pretty tame. Now, I want you to imagine somebody with something truly horrible in their past, a really horrible belief, or maybe they did something really horrible. Do we forgive them? So what got me thinking about this video and this whole topic was that on September 9th, 1957, at North Little Rock High School, a group of white students blocked the doorway of the school and shouted slurs at 6 black students as they tried to enter the school. A 14-year-old boy stood among the white students. He was close enough to the front for reporters' cameras to capture him. His name was Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys football team. Now, he says that he did not know what was involved. In his words, I don't know that I or anybody anticipated or had a background of knowing what was involved. It was more a curious thing. So he went on to express that he had some fear of getting in trouble with his football coach. The football coach had warned that there might be trouble and didn't want to see them near the front of the school. Which is a nice neutral way of saying, don't get involved, but not saying, to participate in this is wrong. So, I don't know what the football coach's views were on the whole thing, but he's not really part of the story. So, Jerry Jones is now 80 years old, and he has owned the Dallas Cowboys since 1989. So like I said, this is what inspired this video. And it brought up the question of, do we forgive past deeds, or how do we take them? The presence of a 14-year-old boy in a 65-year-old photograph normally wouldn't be news. But Jerry Jones is a billionaire and very influential in the NFL. And recently he has been taking heat because while the majority of players in the NFL are black, National Football League, a black head coach is a very rare thing. In the 33 years he has owned the Cowboys, there have been 8 head coaches, none of whom were black. So some reporters are insinuating that there's a connection between a 14-year-old boy on the front steps of a school in 1957 and a lack of black head coaches now. Now, I don't know enough about Jerry Jones to comment. Honestly, I'd never even heard of Jerry Jones until this story came out. Okay, yeah, so I don't watch football. I'm sorry. The only football team I watch is the high school where I teach. I don't care about football, even slightly. But anyway, I think this story does illustrate the larger question. Jerry Jones is famous. What about the other white boys in that photograph? Especially, what about the ones at the front who can't claim that they were just there to watch? Did any of them ever change, feel remorse for what they did? Should they be forgiven? Now, if you read the full article, which is cited down below in my video description, you get to learn a lot about the twisted world in which Jerry Jones grew up. This was a world where one supermarket, owned by his parents, was notable for allowing both black and white customers to enter by the front door. And just think about how unremarkable that is now. His grandfather, Joe Jones, was a member of the White Citizens Council. This is a group that played a key role in protesting school desegregation. Local leader, furniture store owner Amos Guthridge, believed integration was a communist plot, quote, founded in Moscow to mongrelize the white race in America. Jerry Jones' father, Pat Jones, owned the grocery store that allowed black customers to use the same door as white customers, gasp. But he also stood for states' rights on the issue of segregation. Yeah, he ran for a political office, and when asked about what he felt about school segregation, he talked about states' rights, which sounds really noble, but doesn't answer the question, and sort of sidesteps it, because really what he's saying is, yeah, let them segregate. Let it be local control, which sounds more noble than, I don't want white kids mixing with kids that don't have white skin. So, this is a place where a black effigy was hung from a lamppost by the schoolhouse doors the day after the attempt to desegregate. Students at this school would belt out Dixie as black students walked by to their segregated school. This is a place that did a racist display that was visible at a football game. And students from this school attacked a 58-year-old black maid named, I may pronounce this incorrectly, Willie Russell Cole, as she walked home from work. I apologize. I'm struggling with my handwriting there. The Washington Post article gives a lot of detail about Mr. Jones now, and the child is certainly the product of his environment. You can't blame a child for the environment that they are in, because they are going to pick up the pieces of that environment. As children, we are shaped by the people around us in our views on politics, race, religion, and so much more. Now, yes, as teenagers, we do start to question and push back. That's part of becoming an individual. And yeah, that is part of what can make teenagers be obnoxious, but that's part of them becoming the adults that they're going to be. But in general, they tend to fit in with their little niche. You grow up in a very conservative area, you generally tend to be quite conservative. You grow up in a really religious area, you tend to grow up to be quite religious. That's just kind of the nature of things. So I'll come back to Jerry Jones, but I want to give another example. I want to talk about Megan Phelps-Roper. I have a link below to a speech given by Megan Phelps-Roper as she talked about holding up a sign that read, "Gays are worthy of death," when she was just 5 years old. She wasn't even old enough to read the sign she was holding up. Now, she finally broke free of the world that put her there and those attitudes about 20 years later. She grew up in the infamous Westboro Baptist Church. I haven't seen them in the news much lately, so I don't know how they're doing, but there was a time when they were known for going to funerals, especially of military service members, to protest about homosexuals with signs spouting incendiary slogans like "God hates fags" or "Thank God for dead soldiers." This is cruel no matter what. What really took these people to the next level was that they did this at funerals of service members who were killed. As she got older, she became quite vocal about her own horrific beliefs on homosexuals. And yet there came a point when she changed her mind. She was a product of her environment. You might recognize from the word Phelps in her name that she was in the pastor's family. A while back, I did some videos on changing minds and more specifically about her. And she now has quite different views and talks about them and how she changed her mind. Do we forgive her? I watched an interview with a man who used to be a white supremacist. He actually became a white supremacist as a teenager. And I'm going to butcher this name. It's Italian, and I don't speak Italian, but Christian Picciolini had a normal childhood as the son of Italian immigrants. At age 14, a white supremacist was able to pull him into that movement. He was vulnerable and susceptible. Now, like all of us, we all want to belong, and especially people who don't feel like they belong are vulnerable. And this is why a lot of these kind of groups focus on youth. I'm 47. It takes a lot to get me excited about a cause. I'm too cynical and I ask too many questions. And I'm not energetic like when I was younger. I wouldn't be a good recruit I wouldn't be a good recruit for an organization that's looking for passion and no questions asked. These groups, like I said, they prey on the young and vulnerable. Christian Picciolini talks about returning to install computer hardware at his old high school after he escaped the white supremacist movement. And that story about escaping the white supremacist movement is quite a story, too. As he's talking about this, he recalled that the second time he was kicked out of his high school because he got into a fist fight with a black security guard there. And when he went to install the computer hardware, that man was still there. And he talks about following the guy out to his car to apologize, and the guy recognized him and just being terrified for his life. But they were able to embrace, and Christian was able to apologize. And I think that illustrates a big piece of the answer. The child is a child. They don't get much choice. But as we age, we are definitely a product of our environment. But I think we do take on more responsibility for our opinions, views, and actions. Yes, we remain a product of our upbringing. Sometimes we reject it, but that's hard, especially since it's so often a part of ourselves, firmly embedded as a part of our identity. And it's hard to dig that out of ourselves, let alone abandon it. And it's often unconscious. And even worse, a lot of times, if you're part of the Westboro Baptist Church, it could be part of your family. You could get ostracized by your family for changing, or your friends. That makes it really hard to escape it. And of course, it's really hard to change even as an adult, because accepting what you were is really difficult. And it's even worse to realize that maybe you were wrong, even evil. You were the villain in your own story. It might be easier just not to change, or to deny it, hide it, or deflect from it. So I shared 3 stories in this short video. I respect Megan Phelps-Roper and Christian Picciolini. They overcame their origins and now try to help people that are trapped like they were. And honestly, I'll never know if I could be as strong as they are. I was a lot less satisfied with the Jerry Jones story, but I will also admit that I don't know enough about his story to reach conclusions. My feeling from the Washington Post article, linked below, was that he deflected overmuch and really avoided answering questions. I'm all about forgiveness. I've changed over the years, even since I started this channel. You probably have changed as well. And I think that's key. We all change and grow, or we should. Do they disavow their past opinions? Do they criticize their past opinions? Have they truly changed? I say embrace them. The worse the things they did, the more that they have to be clear on that. Be sure that they clearly acknowledge the pain and harm they caused. If they can't give straight answers or deflect, they know they were wrong and aren't strong enough to confront it. And they may need help with that. It's really hard to, especially when you're in the wrong, to face being judged by other people, that whole judgmental attitude. That's what often leads us to make ourselves the hero in our own story. It's really hard to face judgment, especially from our own self. I can't believe I used to think that way. I can't believe I used to do those things. I can't believe I used to say those things. They may need sympathy and support to realize that, I don't like the things that you used to do, but I respect that you realize it's wrong, and I accept the person you are now. Now, if they're denying, they probably know they were wrong, but are too self-centered to face it. Or, let's be charitable, maybe they're too ashamed. And that's where it gets tricky. Maybe they don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. What do you mean there's something wrong with thinking that black and white people can't marry? So, it's not as easy as it sounds. The easiest ones are the ones that are just double down on it, or the ones who clearly admit that, yeah, I was wrong, and boy, I wish I wouldn't have said or done those things. And, that doesn't mean, oh, yeah, I've had a change of heart, so I'm free of any consequences, but, I also know that people feel trapped. I kept finding more and more stories, and I had to force myself to stop at 3, or else this video would go on forever, but human nature isn't as black and white and cut and dried as we like to think. It is so complicated. So I'll just say this. I err on the side of forgiveness. Doesn't mean I forget. I think of the old country song, which I'll see if there's a video of it on YouTube. I'll link it down below if I can find it. But there's a line in it. A daddy might forgive, but a daddy don't forget. It's about a man who married this guy's daughter, was an alcoholic and made all kinds of stupid decisions, was trying to put his life back together. But in the meantime, his wife had left him, and he's just so regretful over all the things he'd done during that period when he was drinking. That's that's a tough one to balance, especially if you have been hurt. That security guard that embraced Christian Picciolini, I just think that takes a lot of strength to do that, when you might just want to sock the guy in the nose for what he did and what he believed and all the people that he hurt. So, yeah, if actions speak louder than words is what I always say. So, I err on the side of forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. So, I hope I left that gray enough for you. And I want to thank you for watching. We'll close out with a little more road here. And look for some beautiful scenery coming real soon on this trip. So, thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.